Hi, I'm Will, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast. On today's episode, we're looking at how you can improve your relationships with money. Our guest is Bob Wheeler. Bob is the author of The Money Nerve. He helps people conquer their money shame and avoid making poor financial decisions by teaching them how emotions can dictate our choices. And with that, Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Will. Great to be here.
Great to have you on. This is one of those topics that we've had other experts on to talk about in the past. But it's so important for salespeople to have a healthy relationship with money so that they can have success. And then also, hopefully we can transition to this towards the end of the show. It's important for salespeople to be able to communicate effectively without emotional baggage when they're talking about their prospects' money, whether it's the actual ownership of cash from the prospect themselves or the money that they are, I guess, the company they're representing holds, that they're trying to exchange value or services or products for. And people get weird about money pretty quick. So let me ask you this, Bob, to get us started. Is it likely, in your experience, right, that a majority of the listeners listening to the podcast right now, tens of thousands of salespeople, small business owners, and everyone else in between, is it likely that they all have a pretty good relationship with money, or is it more likely that we're all a little bit messed up on this subject?
Well, unfortunately, I would have to say we're probably all a little messed up on this subject. But that's not a bad thing as long as we get conscious about it. But most of us are working from some unconscious beliefs and money blocks.
Why is that? If we can start from, if we can pull it all back and start from the beginning, right? Are we born as humans just with money being a relatively new concept? I don't know how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old, cash and an exchange of value via a stones, gold, paper notes, whatever it is now. Are our brains just not wired to understand it and we add weird emotions to it? Is it our childhood upbringing? Is it the media? What causes us to be all maybe slightly messed up with our emotions of money?
So, it might be all of that, but unfortunately, and I'm not blaming parents here. I'm not blaming the parents, but we are part of our upbringing, and a lot of our decisions, a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our rules got formed when we were 4, 5, and 6 years old. So if we were shamed about money, if we watched our parents fight about money, if we were told we were greedy, or if we were generous, we started to take all that on at 4, 5, and 6. And then we never update the information. We just keep working with it as we go into adulthood. And we're still operating with that information we got at 4, 5, and 6, which may or may not be helpful or true.
And is this because it's all based in our subconscious? Because it seems like if someone has an issue of money, and I'm thinking of a specific friend of mine, right, who is just excuse my French, just a cheap bastard, right? He doesn't want to spend money. He doesn't really want to earn money. And if there's money in his bank account, he wants to get rid of it as quick as possible. Now, I know his mum, I know his family. They're all very and this is painting a broad brush strokes here, but they're all hippies, right? They're all from a place of, which might be healthy, of, hey, I value experiences and friendships as opposed to nice cars, big houses. But in the modern world, some of that doesn't quite work because you need a place to live. You need a way to fund your lifestyle kind of thing. So he's a little bit messed up, but he doesn't see it, right? I see it from afar. He doesn't see it, understand it. Trying to have these conversations with him. I need to hire you, Bob, to come in and sort some of this out for me. But do we have these beliefs, and are they stored in our subconscious, and is it difficult for us to see them internally? Or if we're that messed up on it, at some point, are we just choosing to live this way?
Yeah, well, we are choosing to live that way until we decide we want to take a look at it. And it is certainly not fun. I don't have people running with joy and glee to explore their money past with me, or to look at their debt, or to look at their spending habits. It's not something we get excited about. But we do carry this, and we're going around with our comfort level. So maybe if I'm a hippie type and I'm comfortable with having no bank overdraft, then as soon as I get $1,000 or $10,000, I got to spend that money and get back to my comfort level. For some people, it might be $50,000 or $100,000 or $2,000. It's different for all of us, but we tend to go back to what's comfortable. And it's not comfortable looking at the money choices that we've done that haven't served us.
Is it possible? And I've heard this bandied around. You be able to tell me if there's any evidence to support this. But I've heard this bandied around that most people will earn plus or minus 20% of what their parents did via the conditioning of their parents or the upbringing or the people that I guess if you are minted, you'd like to go to a private school, you're spending more time. And so those things become normal. And so that's where if you use, I don't know, what would be a metaphor, like a thermostat, your thermostat would be set at a certain point. If you go beyond that, you want to cool it down. If you're below that, you want to heat things back up. Is becoming wealthy as simple as just repositioning that thermostat and then making that your new normal, and you're just so uncomfortable until you're there that you're going to hustle, you're going to change things, you're going to change your mindsets to make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what it is, it's not just changing the thermostat so that all of a sudden more money comes in. It's changing the thermostat so that your mindset gets slightly adjusted. So if you're in a mindset of spend, and you adjust it to, oh, maybe I should save 20%. Oh, maybe I should start investing a little bit more money. I should save for retirement. It's those types of adjustments where we're shifting our mindset, not necessarily, oh, yes, I want $10 million more to flow into my bank account. Certainly that would be nice. It's also, am I willing to let that happen? Do I deserve it? And am I going to actually let my money start to work for me instead of how can I spend my money so I can live in the moment?
So I'm going to give you a super practical example now of something that I've bought that I feel I don't deserve, and it's absolutely ludicrous, right? And the audience will hopefully enjoy this as well. So I've been watching a bunch of documentaries and reading books on this principle of minimalism, right? So I'm not entirely sold that I need to live in a shack with one toothbrush and one pair of clothes. But I interviewed Greg McKeown he's the author of Essentialism as well. I interviewed him a while back, and he drilled into this idea into my head of less but better. So that's what I'm trying to lean into, right? So as I say this example is so stupid. I've got a cordless here in the office. I've got a cordless vacuum cleaner, and I've got a corded one. I never use the corded one because it's a pain in the ass. Because there's cables everywhere and there's all camera equipment everywhere. So I just never use it. And the cordless one is just a cheap, crappy thing that doesn't pick up anything. So that's pointless as well. So today I spent 500 quid on the best cordless Dyson that there is, right? Ordered it. It's coming tomorrow morning. And immediately I was like, is that too much to spend on a vacuum cleaner? It doesn't matter, right? I make enough money that is just so insignificant that it's irrelevant to, I wouldn't even notice it coming out of my bank account, right? And I still pondered on, have I been a sucker buying this cordless vacuum cleaner from Dyson? And the idea being I'll have that'll do the best of both worlds of the other two, and I can just bin the other two. Less stuff in the office, less stuff for me to think about, maintain, all that good stuff. What is the weird feeling that I'm feeling there, Bob, about this ridiculous purchase? Then perhaps we can scale this up then to actual meaningful purchases that people either are making or holding back in their lives.
Well, there's probably a bit of guilt there. Right? Even though you're making a lot of money, it still doesn't feel, if we're cheap or we're tight with our money or there's a scarcity mindset, who am I to go out and do this thing? There's people out in the world that are hungry. There are people that are, trying to get it together. And I'm not going to go out and spend all this money on a vacuum cleaner just so I don't have to plug it in. And so,
yeah. Do you know what, Bob? As you say that, mate, the thing that comes to my mind, right, and this might be useful for the audience, is so I call my dad every day, right? My mum passed away 4 or 5 years ago, so I call my dad every day. We have a quick chat about stuff, and he ran a small business, so we have intelligent conversations about marketing and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to tell him tomorrow that I spent 500 quid on a Hoover, and he's going to go, what? Are you crazy? And so maybe some of the guilt is being somehow tied to this flippant conversation that doesn't mean anything. My dad's not bothered about it really, but I know he's going to take the piss out of me tomorrow when I mention it because he wouldn't spend that much. So maybe is that unraveling some of this further perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we also either do things to support our parents mom and dad, you're always right, or we do things in defiance of them. So if you have a great relationship with your dad and now you've done something he wouldn't have done, like maybe you're not a good boy, maybe you're not the good son that you thought you were. And so that may come into play. Like, I'm still a good guy, even though I didn't follow what you would have done.
And so this is weird though, right? Because it's meaningless. But
Right.
and I don't know if that is true for me, what you just said, unless it's so deep in my subconscious that as an adult, or maybe I'm just refusing to believe and agree with that. Maybe that is the case. But why do we have this? Why do we form a relationship with money, with objects, with spending things, with debt? Why is there emotions tied to what is essentially a very logical thing, right? Which is numbers on a screen or pieces of paper in our pocket. Why do we tie emotion to all this? Why am I now feeling embarrassed and guilty about sharing this story on the podcast that, you know, thousands and thousands of people are going to see, hear, and probably email me having a laugh about?
Well, here's the thing. We start off early. Hey, I want that present. I want a bicycle. You're greedy. You're a selfish little kid. You don't think of other people. If you get good grades, I'll give you some money. If you misbehave, I'll disinherit you. If you do this, you can buy my love. And so we early on start attaching values to good, bad, evil, greedy. And so now, am I going to be greedy if I ask for this? If I ask for too much, do I ask for just enough? How do I self-advocate? And it becomes this whole mind game of, am I good enough? Do I deserve to ask for these things or go for it? Or do I need to apologize so that other people don't judge me? We're all judging and we're all getting judged. And so can we tolerate the judgment?
Do you know what's even more funny as I think about this? I'll leave the analogy at this, Bob, because I'm not sure it's the best analogy that I've ever come up with, or analogy, metaphor, whatever this is. So I'm going to go back to the house after this from the office. My missus bought the last Hoover for the house, and that's a Dyson like V8. Well, I've just bought this Dyson V15, and I can't wait to show Emily tomorrow that I've bought a way better Hoover for the office than what we've got there. So as you said, then there's this idea of like comparison, this idea of competition. There's like a different relationship with me missus than what I have with me dad, and so this is this is incredibly. This is more. I didn't mean to go into the show with this analogy, right? But this is, even for someone like myself who I thought I had some of this nailed. This can go pretty deep, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the funny thing. So many people in relationships are in competition, right? They're actually, I beat you. I got you. I did better. And it's not conscious, but it's amazing how many times I ask couples, are you on the same team or are you trying to beat each other? And I just get this blank look.
Me and my missus, we have. I'd say we have a healthy element of competitiveness to our relationship, right? So,
yeah,
the best way to describe it, I think it was The Road Less Traveled. It's Scott Peck. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Something stood out to me in that, and this is totally sidetracked, but I'll come back to sales in a second. Something that really struck me from that book was this idea of you should choose to be in a relationship as opposed to be in a relationship because the other person fills a hole that you think you have. So, and the reason I bring this up is that I think this translates well to sales. It translates well to your friends, your family. You want to work with customers who value you being there, as opposed to you're solving a problem that they're so desperate to solve, that they desperately need you, because then things get a little bit weird and you get people asking for refunds or kind of being overburdened on your time, especially if you're in a consulting type role. So with that all said, we've used me as an example here. I've looked silly. I'm happy to do that for the audience. Let's imagine that 99% of the audience, other than people who've worked with you directly, Bob, also have these issues, right? How do we solve them? Let's get practical about this. Do we need to sit there on a bed, lay back, and have someone go into our Freudian style, go into our subconscious and unravel all these issues that we had with our parents inadvertently saying money grows on trees, or all these other kind of notions about cash? Do we need to go through 25 years of therapy to get back to baseline, or is there another way to go about doing this?
Well, you don't have to spend 25 years exploring this stuff for sure. It does matter that you get a little bit curious about what you've done in the past. For me, when I work with people, whether I work with them directly or I'm just working with somebody and giving them some guidance is to just do some journaling. Get out a journal, get out a book, and start writing down memories that you remember. What did mom and dad say about money? Did I grow up with my grandparents? Did I grow up in a culture that honored money or made it bad? And just really start to become aware of what's my money history. And you don't need somebody, and you have to lay on a couch and spend hours and hate your parents and all that stuff. But it is important to sort of go, oh, that's where that comes from. And then start to actually listen to the words you use. I'm amazed at how many people will come to me and say, Bob, I'm so broke. I can't afford this. I can't pay these taxes. Really? You've got 3 properties that are all making great rental income. You just flew to Europe. For those in America, that's an expense, right? And so there's this story that, oh my gosh, I'm such a victim. I'm so poor. And the reality is it's not true. And so the more we can listen to what we're saying and start to realize, oh, I'm making different choices other than saving my money. I'm choosing to spend instead of invest. And so it takes us out of this story. The biggest thing for me is, and I'm an accountant, so cost benefit. What's it costing me to stay in my story? And what's the benefit? I don't have to be big. I don't have to succeed. I get to stay small, but maybe at the cost of my soul. Maybe.
Is there always a benefit? Even if that benefit doesn't serve your long-term purpose, is there always a seemingly positive reason for the behavior that people have about money?
Absolutely. And I would say the main one is comfort. I don't have to feel uncomfortable. I don't have to step out of my comfort zone. People can't judge me for doing something different. I don't have to worry about failure. I get to just stay right here and nobody's expecting anything different.
So we're going to journal. We're going to investigate our thoughts and beliefs. We're going to eventually, things like my dad always says, still says it now, money doesn't grow on trees. Which I don't take seriously, but maybe there's some kind of deep, dark Freudian element to that that's sabotaging my success moving forward, right? So perhaps we become aware of some of this. We change the narrative. When that crops up in our mind, we immediately try and focus on the fact that we look for evidence that it to be true. And if it's not true, we can discount some of it. We need to understand what the positive reasons are for us having these behaviors, whether that be comfort or we've been rejected in the past and we don't want to get rejected in the future, whatever it is. So perhaps that gets us back to baseline or perhaps slightly net positive of our beliefs of money. Mm-hmm. Are there any money beliefs that we should proactively try and instill in our brains as if we can go through, if we can be our own like weird father archetype and program our own brains or hire a hypnotist or whatever it is? Is there anything that we should be programming into ourselves that will enable us to be more successful, invest more, and perhaps, if people have debt, get out of debt and that side of things as well?
Absolutely. So I would say to be able to spend less than you make, right? Make more than you spend. That is, so many of us live beyond our means. And so dialing it back just a little bit, and also, which that ties to delayed gratification, learning to experience delayed gratification. If I don't go out and take this little trip for the weekend or go out to the pub and drink a bunch of drinks, I might have that money for the down payment on a rental property. I might be able to make different choices. And so I think those are 2 things that are really important. I would also say, look at your spending. Do a budget. Budgets are amazing, even though people cringe at that. Budgets give us a lot of information. And if we can do that, we can start to actually set lifelong goals. I want to have this much in savings. I want to have a retirement. I want to have a house. I want to have a house in the country, whatever those things are, so that as we're currently spending today, we can ask ourselves, is this spending in line with what I say I want for my future?
I'm gonna just be selfish here for a second because I think this might be useful for myself, right? So we got a training academy, and to get in the training academy, you got to either speak to myself or one of my colleagues, and we see if the students are good fit, and if they fit our kind of principles, and if we can actually help them or not. We won't take cash off people that we don't think we can, like 5-6 times the take home and the commissions, right? So, and it's somewhat of a formal process. And one of the questions we ask is, how much do you earn right now? How much do you want to earn? And maybe 50, 60% of the time, the potential student will say, well, I earn, say, $5,000 a month from a base of my commissions, and I want to earn 7,000. And some of this is experience for myself, right? Having done well in B2B sales roles and we've had now 2,000 people go through our training program, and not everyone has had massive success, but there's a large majority of them have at least some success, if not tremendous success. And every time I'm kind of in my brain going, 7,000 a month in a complex B2B sales role, that they're in the right vehicle. They are just about to get the training and mentoring that they need to have everything that from a process standpoint to implement. It's almost like the final step is for them to accept that in that role, they should be earning $200,000, $300,000 if they put the work in, if they follow the process, and if they can find the one or two points of differentiation in the market and the value proposition and things like that, which takes a little bit of work and does take effort. There's no magic pill that we're offering or anything like that. But then they still come back and say, well, so I'll go 7,000. Is that your goal? Is that your dream? Is it worth all the stress and the rejection of your sales role to earn that amount? And they'll go, I understand. 8,000. I'm like, no, it needs to be like double that before. Otherwise, don't work in sales. Go and do an office job. Go and do something else, right? So I then not struggle because this is part of the sales process, right? And I understand. What I'll tell you what I do. I get them to think where they are, where they want to be, what's stopping them getting from one side to the other, and then I frame it as they're the hero, and I'm going to guide them from one place to the other. They're Frodo, they're going to get to the ring, but I'm Gandalf, who's kind of leading them along and helping them through their journey. Is there anything else I can do to help these individuals just open their mind that if they're in the right role and there's other people? What I'm saying is I try and give them logical evidence, and I'm not sure this is the best approach. There's other people in your company earning £250,000 a year. Can you do the same? I guess so. There's other people in similar roles in different companies doing that. There are people working less hours than you earning way more. I can introduce you to this student, this student, this student. There's this testimonial, there's this video. I keep giving them logical reasons to change an emotional feeling about what they believe they can achieve in their career. What else should I be doing? The logical side of things seems to work, but is there a better approach to this, Bob?
So I would probably, if I was talking to somebody and they said, yeah, I want to do 7,000, and I really wanted to see them say 25,000, I'd probably say to them, what's the worst thing about earning 5 times what you're currently making? What's going to happen? What's going to be so negative about having extra time and being able to pay for things without even thinking about it? What's going to happen when you start to have all this excess money to do things that you've always dreamed about and you have the ability to travel? What are the negatives? And you'll be surprised. A lot of people will start listing out a negative. My parents are going to judge me. My girlfriend's going to judge me. Like I'm going to have to say no to people that ask me for money because now everybody's going to say, well, Bob's got more money. Will's got more money. Let me hit him up. I might have to draw boundaries. And so if you can actually focus on what are all the negative things going to happen, you'd be surprised at how many negative things people can list out about when something good happens to them.
And then is it a case of squashing each one of those negatives, and then that allows them the bandwidth in their brain to see if it's possible to get to that kind of amount?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really say like I squash it. What I would do is I would say, is that true? Like in your experience, if you make more money, do your parents hate you? Do people judge you? Starting to separate. You know, a lot of times I'll have people say to me, you know, I've got to get to a certain amount of money or my parents will be really disappointed. And I'll say to them, would you be willing to ask your parents, what's the dollar amount at which point they stop loving you? And they're like, what? Well, you're pretty sure that there's a number. So why don't you ask them and see if that in fact is true? Because my hunch is your parents are going to love you even if you fail in your eyes. Mm-hmm. And so, but we're working off these premises and these assumptions that aren't necessarily true. And so the more we can get grounded in reality, we can start to let those stories go.
I love it. Asking that question, do you know this to be true? Is there any evidence to support that? Is there any other, I'm just thinking of very practical for the audience, how they can do this, because we're going to move on to how the audience can speak to and communicate with someone who's struggling with their own beliefs and money in a second. But is there any evidence that that's true? What else did you say? There was a couple of others, Bob, in the like kind of phrases. That
well, is it true? Is this assumption like have I seen this happen to me before? Have I seen it to other people? Really, just honing in on what story and what's actually happening.
Got it. And is that the basic premise of all this? If we can whittle it down, what is a story that you're telling yourself and other people have told you versus what is the reality and what evidence do you have to support one or the other?
Yeah, absolutely. And then am I willing to let it go?
Sure.
Am I going to stay so attached to my story?
What happens if they're not willing to let it go? What happens if they go, I quite like being skint. I quite like being poor. I quite like not taking on all this pressure. I guess that's almost a positive interaction still, because they can walk away and go, oh, I'm choosing to do this. So maybe they can embrace it and stop moaning about it, right?
Absolutely. I think for me, the biggest thing is at least I'm stopped being a victim. If I'm coming from a place of, oh, this always happens. No, I'm choosing it. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to do these things to get what I want. I'm actually content. Great. Blessings, go in peace. Like, I'm not here to force everybody to want to have more money or to have a more fulfilling life. If they're comfortable, I don't want people walking around being victims of their circumstance. I want them to know that they chose it.
Amazing stuff. This is really valuable, this episode, Bob. Okay, so let's flip the table slightly. And we'll have touched on some of this, I'm sure, in the episode so far, but it'd be useful to get more clarity on this specific scenario. What if we are a B2B salesperson? We know our product is going to solve a pain point for a potential customer. We know that they've got the budget because it's not their money. There's some middle management or a VP level, director level individual within a medium-sized organization. Say,
right.
let's make it real. Sam, the salesperson, is selling accounting software right into a medium-sized organization. We know that we're really going to help the CFO, the accountants that are going to be using this tool day in, day out. But the CFO that we're chatting with just can't bear to give up 30 grand a month of revenue for this tool. They feel weird about it. They feel that they're old school. They feel like their accountant should be using ledgers. I'm sure that disappeared like 20 years ago, right? But they should be doing this in paper. There should be a paper trail. They're not ready to move, even though logically they know that they should do this. What can we do, or how do we approach that kind of conversation from a seller's perspective when we know everything is right? It's just the prospect, the potential buyer, has some weird beliefs about money that perhaps we can help them deal with.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would do is ask them personal questions as to why this feels so uncomfortable spending this kind of money. The numbers support it. Depending on the company, I'm the type of person that would say, look, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'll give you 30 days to try this out. And you could tell me you hate it or you love it, because I think at the end of 30 days, you're going to discover it's amazing. It's going to be a game changer. And if I really believe in the product, there's nothing to lose by willing to give it away for 30 days so they can actually get proof personally and be able to go, oh my God, I actually feel the difference. I think a lot of times if we're just trying to sell snake oil, maybe we don't want to do that. But if we really have something that can change somebody's life, I'm of the belief I'm willing to lose a little in the short run to make a lot in the long run.
Got it. So we're going to give them the evidence, right? We're going to, and then how do we, so let's say that happens. Let's say it's accounting software. Let's say the issue is that this CFO thinks software is free. It's instantly replicatable. We shouldn't be paying 30 grand a month for this. We should be paying 3 grand a month for this. And they're not understanding the value. And again, it's a weird belief that they have about money, as opposed to them not understanding the product that's holding them back. We give them the demo for 30 days. The individual loves it. How do we re-engage that conversation? Is it again going, well, there's the money here, but there's also the evidence that you've told me that you get a lot of value from this? How do we approach the conversation knowing that now we've got evidence to show that the individual is going to the business is going to make money from it. There's going to be a return on investment.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would do before I even give it away for 30 days for free is I want to make sure with them, are you going to give it a fair shake? Are you just going to do this for 30 days so you can see if you can get something free? Or are you actually open to, if I can show you where I can save you a lot of money, are you open to moving forward? Mm-hmm. Because if they're not, if their mindset is still such that it doesn't matter what you tell me, I'm not going to waste my time. Like at a certain point, I don't have to save the whole world. I only need to target people that are open to it, and actually they don't have to necessarily see it, but they're open to seeing it through experience. You know, I've had people, you know, I have a client who she hired a salesperson to bring business into her practice, and it doubled the money. It doubled the money. Mm-hmm. But she was really upset because the person didn't want to drive to the office and clock in and then drive to the different seminars and the places they were going. And so I said to the client, this is crazy to me. You're doubling your income. And we're talking, it's a small business. So they went from making $250,000 to $500,000, but not bad for a 3-person office. And I said, so you're telling me you'd rather give up $250,000 to be right about having them clock in? And the client said, yeah. I went, okay, well, there's your answer. So they let them go. The income dropped, but they're incredibly happy because they're following the rules that they set forth, instead of being open to the fact that this person was making money for them, but they weren't doing it in a way that was congruent with the owner. There's nothing I can do to change that mindset, mm-hmm. even though I'm just looking at all the lost revenue going, this is mind blowing, but I couldn't change their mind. And at a certain point, I'm just going to spend my energy where I can actually do some good.
Sure. So I work with a bunch of I'm really passionate about small business owners, right? I love sales. Sales can be systematized a lot easier than it can be to create a startup or a small business. But I love encouraging small business owners. And so I do loads of both free and paid consulting with them. And something that I see time and time again, because a lot of people will get in touch with me when they've hired 1 or 2 salespeople and they want to ramp up the salespeople's performance. What I see so often is the salesperson will start like killing it, right? And they'll be getting close to the take home of the owner of the business. And then the owner of the business starts feeling weird about it, and they try and sabotage the salesperson rather than just give them unlimited, uncapped commissions. As long as it's hugely profitable, what are you doing? Yeah. But they get jealous, they get weird, it gets all icky. Salespeople typically can feel that, and they're going, why am I sacrificing? Because obviously the business owner's getting equity in the business and the business growth and all that side of things as well. The salesperson's going, I'm not getting any of that stuff. And I'm doing half the job of a founder, doing all this selling, and I'm the one looking silly. They just swoop in perhaps at the end of the deal and put in a phone call or two, and it's just such a common phenomenon that I find with small business owners. I'm not crazy, am I? That is bizarre, isn't it?
It happens a lot. I've actually had a few salespeople on my podcast, and we've talked about this, mm-hmm. where all of a sudden they start killing it. And the owner will come back and say, well, we're going to have to change the commission structure. You're just doing too well. What do you mean? You worked it out logically. Yep. You're going to make X amount of money if they do this. And they're doing it. And they're doing it exponentially. Why now do you have to say, well, you have to make less because even though you followed all the rules, I don't feel good about it. It's so counterintuitive. It's so counterintuitive.
And that leads me on to see final question, Bob, and we might have already answered this, so I'll ask you again. I think there's value in covering this if we need to. What does a salesperson need to do if and I know loads of salespeople have been there, they're successful, they're doing $100,000 take home, $200,000 take home, $500,000 take home, but they've been stuck there for 4 or 5 years. Colleagues have come and gone, done better or worse. The marketplace, there's data, there's evidence that shows that the marketplace is there for them to make more cash. But, and maybe they are comfortable, but they don't want to be comfortable, right?
Right.
Do they need to start asking questions like, what are the negatives if I earn $600,000? and start to
Yeah.
reverse engineer this? Is there any other questions that they should be asking themselves to not make them hustle harder or a change process, but to open their mindset that other people are earning more, and so they've got the opportunity, they've got the same opportunity as anyone else?
Yeah, absolutely. I would start off with the question of what are my limiting beliefs about making more money? I would really start to look at, am I comfortable? What would it take to go to the next level? And why do I believe I can't get there? Is it because I don't have the skill set? I don't have the communication skills? There might be something there. I've watched people move away from jobs because the next level required something that they didn't think they had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would really, again, get curious. I think whether you're looking at your own beliefs or you're looking at your potential customers' beliefs, getting curious and creating a relationship instead of just looking at it transactionally is the key. Whether we're talking to ourselves and going, well, that's stupid. Putting 10% away just makes sense. Well, if I don't understand relationally why I'm so opposed to that, I'm not going to do it. And the same thing when I'm trying to sell something. If the person thinks I'm just trying to make a sale, there's no reason to trust me because I'm just trying to make a sale. But if I actually get to know them, know that they actually like, soccer, or that they like to go fishing, or I actually get to know them as a person, there might be some room for, oh, this is actually a relationship, and then we can let it grow. But until we get aware of what's that limiting belief, why am I afraid to take it to the next level, you're not going to go anywhere. And I know for me, I had to struggle with, well, it's too easy for me. Like I felt guilty charging what I charge because I'm like, I would do it for free. I like doing accounting. I'm a weirdo, I like doing tax stuff. And it seemed too easy. So how can I actually pay lots of money for this when other people struggle really hard to be able to do what I do? It's how can I be paid that kind of money? I don't feel so guilty now. But it was very hard raising my rates and saying, no, this is what I want, and feeling comfortable being able to say, this is what it is. And if it doesn't work for you, I'm totally cool with it, but I'm not going to change my parameters to make you feel better about yourself when I know this is a solid working model.
I had a mentor help me with this maybe 6 months ago, from previous to when we were recording the show now, Bob. And they just sat me down with our profit and loss and with all the content that we were producing and the expenses that come along with it. And they're like, right, what content drives profit? Not what content do you enjoy doing, not what content does the team enjoy doing. What content makes money? It's the Salesman Podcast. It's Salesman Made Simple, the kind of solo version of this podcast, right? It's the audio podcast, and that just slowly, gradually goes up in time, and it's the YouTube videos. We're also doing Instagram, blog posts, in the midst of writing a book, all this, just tons, mess around with TikTok, all this kind of like crap, right? And he was just like, why are you doing it? And it turns out, after going back and forth and a few conversations, I had a similar kind of realization that what you did. I was like, well, it'd be too simple if all I had to do was a couple of podcasts and a couple of videos a week, and jump out and do some like mentoring calls with our students over at Salesman Made Simple Academy. It's like that, it'd be too easy. I didn't feel like I was putting in enough effort for I guess the business growth, but also my take home pay as well. I was like, well, this is like a really nice little business to run if that's all I did. I didn't do all the other crap on top of it that I didn't like. So I broached it with the team. The team were like, yeah, are you stupid? Of course it's a waste of time and energy. We don't want to do all this extra crap as well. We want to just do the core content, that we can produce high quality content that leads to phone calls getting booked and deals getting made on the back of it. And I was just like, why did no one tell me this? And then they were happy just to do the work, and we had some kind of internal conversations, and we had to set some a vision and a mission and some principles for the company and get more defined. But it all stemmed from my like weird belief pattern of, I've got to hustle, I've got to work hard, I've got to stay ahead of everyone in the space. I feel like with our content, we've got a bit of a lead versus some of the competitors, whether it's production quality or just the openness of these kind of conversations versus other sales podcasts that are out there. And the reality was that we don't need a lead. We're so different to everyone else out there. People buy the training product because they want to buy from me. So as long as I'm still at the company, it's going to sell and do well. And again, it all stems from this weird belief that I need to work really hard, really long hours, and make loads of sacrifices to make progress, which, to be fair, may have been true 5 years ago, 6 years ago when I started the business. You don't know what's going on. But right now, this one business coach is like, you're just crazy. You're just burying yourself with work and stress and pressure for no reason. How common is that kind of experience, do you reckon, Bob?
Well, that's super common. We all have a belief of we've got to put in 40 hours a week at least. It's got to be a little painful. It can't just be fun and easy. What are you talking about? Everybody has slaved, and there's a history of you got to really work hard. Yeah, it may be that sometimes you have to work hard. It doesn't mean you can't also relax and have a little fun. And it doesn't all have to be complicated. We culturally have decided we've got to have some suffering, and it's ridiculous because it's all self-imposed. We've bought into the system that said it's got to be painful. It can't be too easy because it's just not right.
And I think we need to do what you've just suggested as well. If you can sit there in front of an Excel spreadsheet or some accounting software for hours on end and the time flies by, you are clearly perfectly wired for that. Learning the latest ups and downs and this and that with accounting and finance. I hate it. I have an external account because I just don't care. All I want to see is the number in the bank account, and then I've not got a big tax bill. I want to minimize that tax bill, the best account at the end of the year. I pay handsomely for not to look at taxes and accountants and P&Ls or anything else throughout the year, right? But I'm perfectly suited to doing these podcast interviews, for doing mentoring in the training program, and for building selling frameworks. So I think if you can find the place that you're wired to be, and you can adjust some of this, I'm sure, and you can hustle and you can get through certain elements of this in your career. If you've got to break through into management, if you've got to go from one type of sales to another type of sales, if you're in the right kind of place, things can be simple, can't they? Things can be easy.
Absolutely. I mean, love what you do, I think, is so important, and not everybody always has that option. But yeah, if I hated accounting, it'd be painful. It would definitely be painful. But I love it, and I'm glad that other people hate it.
Yep.
Because it gives me lots of work.
Yep. Well, that's the arbitrage. That's the market. That's why we're all here, and hopefully that's valuable for the audience as well. With that, Bob, tell us about the Money Nerve, the book, and tell us about the podcast as well, where we can find out more about you.
Absolutely. So The Money Nerve, it's a book I wrote, The Money Nerve, because emotions around money are in our body. People have heart attacks. People jump off of buildings. People get really excited when they get a bonus check they didn't expect. So The Money Nerve, not nerd. I'm a nerd. And then we have a podcast called Money You Should Ask, where we talk with people from all walks of life, a lot of highly successful people that talk about their failures and about their own money journeys, so that people can actually hear other stories and realize it's possible for me too, instead of staying small and saying, I'm afraid to take the next step because I'm the only exception to the rule where I can't have what I want. And so check us out. We're happy to work with people. We've got great resources, and we just want people to have the fullest life that they want to have if they so choose.
Amazing stuff. Well, we'll link to the book, the podcast, your website, everything else over in the show notes to this episode over at salesman.org. And with that, Bob, genuinely, mate, really, I'm going to use this question in the next lot of sales calls that we do. So anyone who's listening to this show will be laughing their head off if they try and join our training program and I quiz them on some of this. But I appreciate your insights, mate. And I want to thank you for joining us again on the Salesman Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.